After a day like yesterday, it's hard to hear the news, but we are better off than we've been in the past. We will continue to get better. The challenge is we're improving our systems and the old infrastructure at the same time these events continue to happen. I mean, I don't even know why we talk about 100-year storms anymore, because that definition seems to have flown right out the window. We've had 3 of them in the last 11 years. So I think those are the types of issues. The mayor talked about major flood protection pieces, which we're doing to ensure that we don't build housing in areas that are going to only have problems later on, which is a bit of a useless exercise. But the challenge is much of the city is just not designed to handle this amount of water that's coming down, and that's what we saw yesterday. So the stuff we're doing moving forward, new developments, new projects, are all much better designed, and our regulations around what can be built will allow for a much better absorption of these types of events. The challenge is most of the buildings and most of our roadways and right-of-ways are not built to that standard, and that would take a tremendous amount of resource and a long time to change. So trying to do the things, I think, from a resident perspective, the work that's happening through Toronto Water to look at how we help with the basement flooding piece is work that over the next 4 years we'll definitely see some results, so we can all live through some of these things a little bit easier.
Sewer water can't be separated from stormwater. What can you point to a project right now that may help fix that down the road? Do we have anything to help mitigate that and separate systems?
Well, the way we're developing our infrastructure program is what does that. Older municipalities have this challenge, and so completely changing systems is oftentimes just not feasible from either a space underground perspective, and the other piece is, of course, the resource that it would take. But the way we are building our infrastructure today, whenever we look at the work that's happening on streets, a lot of that is what we call upsizing work, right? To take on the more people that are living in this city. They are done with a design that will help mitigate and manage this better in the future. But again, completely redesigning our subsurface infrastructure system from a water and sewer perspective, just not possible in any time frame or with the resources we have. So we keep getting better. Our systems keep getting better with it, and we've got plenty of projects, obviously, that are trying to make sure we don't have breakage issues, and we also have better ways of moving the water when it comes our way.
Let me answer that piece, may I? There are things that homeowners can do. For example, you can disconnect your downspout and have it flow into rain barrels. And it can also come in gently into the garden, if you have one. And greening your front yard and the backyard means that the water can then be absorbed into the soil as much as possible. And the parking pads that are in front of houses, for example, if you have one, interlocking bricks can mitigate that. So all of those things combined can assist some of the flooding that might happen into the basement. We're looking at, can we help homeowners do that? Can we provide incentive? All of that is being considered right now. Sorry, you have a question here.
Yeah, so question for both of you. Toronto recently spent millions renovating Union Station, and yet yesterday there was what many are referring to as a waterfall inside the station, and the floor was covered in sewage. So should the city not have anticipated extreme weather events when planning for this, making such huge investments, and what are the long-term impacts also going to be?
I don't know about Union Station. It was done.
So, in anticipating these things happening, yes, we know they're on the horizon. There isn't a piece of work that could have been done in Union Station to stop the water that was flowing there. Our crews were out to clean it up as quickly as possible to deal with the situation at Union. But when you have an event like yesterday, and we're talking about getting months worth of rain in a few hours, it's really hard to see how you would engineer and design in this type of a city to fully protect the way it works. So could it have been worse? Probably, with old technology in our old system, so better. And the fact that it is up and fully operational today and safe for people to use today, I think is a testament to the fact that we can manage through these situations. Believe me, nobody wants to see water coming into any building, whether it's the roof leakages here at City Hall or whether it was Union Station. But you know, I think we need to separate out yesterday's event a little bit, which was a very unique circumstance of water, and one that we need to be aware of, from the fact that we get a lot of rain and a lot of water coming into the city on a regular basis year over year, and we're able to manage it. So yes, a lot of money spent. Yes, yesterday our crews did their best to keep it going, and today back up and operational fully. So I think that's the good news story in that we did not have to shut down Union Station for a long period of time in order to remediate it.
Well, when you talk about foresight, I mean, that section of the DVP just south of Gerrard, it's a known problem area, it's the low-lying area of the DVP. Can you talk about whose call it is to make the decision to actually shut it down so you don't have dozens of people stranded on that section of highway?
So Toronto Emergency Management coordinates that. I mean, from a technical perspective, we would work with the police, who have the authority to shut down the road. The city doesn't do that. The police would do from a technical perspective. And as I say, you know, we're monitoring, and the updates were, here's what we're expecting. Don't forget, when Beryl came through, the remnants of Hurricane Beryl, we had, you know, significant rain coming down. We did not have that impact happen. And our early predictions and estimates working through Environment Canada data and all the rest was that we were going to see significant rain, but rain that we felt we could handle in that circumstance. It's always a balance of what do we do. And, you know, and we do have to think about the impact on other parts of life in what we're doing to protect. However, the safety and well-being of Torontonians is always ahead of inconvenience or everything else. And that's why we're reviewing. In fact, I've asked, the meeting happened this week, what could we learn from how we can use information? It will not be helpful for us to say every time there's a thunderstorm coming through, we're going to close the Don Valley Parkway. That's not a helpful answer to the issue. What is, though, is to say, how do we know when these cells are a little different than a normal summer thunderstorm or something like that? What is it we need to be aware of that allows us to do it? I will say the pivot to action limited pretty severely the number of vehicles that were impacted. It could have been a lot worse had we not been having this coordinated and integrated approach. We also have to look at Bayview and what happened on Bayview, because it ended up being closed, and there are things that we can do at Bayview as well. So we're going to look at that. I don't want people to feel that we were unprepared. We were. However, the situation changed pretty significantly. And when that shifted, we needed to pivot to try and ensure the safety of the folks that were caught in that storm. We'll look at it, and whatever we learn from it, we'll be able to share and then implement next time.
People were getting out and almost waist-deep water. Now in hindsight, and I appreciate that hindsight's always 2020, do you think it should have been done, shut down sooner? Do you wish police shut down the DVP sooner?
So let's be clear. I'm not saying that it's a police, you know, that the police would somehow not have done it or did it. They work with us. It's a collective call of emergency management. Of course, you look back at any situation, you say, geez, in hindsight, if we do this, if we do this, if we do this, no different than major snow events. You know, what do you cancel? What do you close? We impact people, and then the snow doesn't come in the same way, and everybody says, hey, how come you close the schools or the childcare programs or the rec centers? And again, that's what we need to look at, is what do we learn from these events that were not consistent across the city. So parts of the city received rain, but not in any volume that would have caused us concern. And other parts of the city were literally deluged with rain that was equivalent, I understand, to something like a hurricane amount of water, not the wind, but the hurricane amount of water. So, you know, these are the things that we take away. And I guess as we learn more about these storms, we have to change our approach to how we will look at things. So what I do want us to learn from this, and what I expect us to have next time, is better understanding of how we can use the data we're collecting to make better decisions. But to sit there the day after and say always, well, we could have done this and this, the Don Valley is just one example. Maybe there were other things. Could we have protected our pools or rec centers differently or done something? We'll look at all of that for the next event.
Can I just ask the mayor about the TTC, just because I understand you have to leave, so if we could jump back to Paul in a second here. The announcement this morning, if you can call it that, it seems to be something that we've already known is coming in 2026. are you able to order the Line 2 trains by the time that you need with just that signing an application?
No. However, this morning, the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, Finance Minister came to the Greenwood Yard, and it was their launch of their permanent transit funding, which is $3 billion per year, every year, predictable funding over 10 years. That's 30 billion across Canada. The money is designated to flow in 2026. It's in 2026 budget. However, the funding application starts today, which means the TDC, because we're already in set, TDC is putting in an application. Let me see, right now. It's past noon. They're ready. So the application is going in. Now, we need to know, hopefully by the September 24th TDC board meeting, there's a board meeting at TDC, because what TDC needs to do is to decide whether they're going to spend $2 billion to fix the old subway cars, or do they put the application, put the order in to buy the new cars. The money doesn't have to flow immediately. Normally with federal infrastructure funds, you spend the money, they then pay. Okay, so it's okay if it comes in later on, in later years, as long as there is indication that the application is in good shape, then we can put in the order. This is just the beginning of it, but we are very grateful that the application the launch of the program just happened. It's significant because this is long-term, it's predictable, it's permanent. Those are the three elements of a good transit infrastructure fund. So we are very grateful with this partnership, this long-standing partnership that we have with the federal government.
Chow, just quickly going back to yesterday's flooding, just had one more question for you. What happened yesterday, and given the fact that insurance, Transport Canada is predicting over $1 billion in damages, we're talking about what we can do moving forward. Does it create an urgency for you to push harder for the stormwater charge?
Yes, you will see by the end of the day there is I'm crafting something to council that would both provide support to local homeowners, provide some incentives, and also to the big parking lot, the commercial parking lot. Right now, there's already consultation in terms of parking levies and how to how to retrofit the building to lower the greenhouse gas emission. Plus, then, what can they do to their parking lots so that the surface is a lot more porous? So all of that hopefully we'll have a conversation at council.
So council's failed to pass stormwater infrastructure spending in the past. I mean, as recently as 2018, quite an infamous conversation about whether Tory could unscramble an egg or not. So how much culpability does council share here for refusing to, really appreciate the severity of the problem and address it? And what are you going to really do about it in terms of stormwater infrastructure spending?
Yep. I can't unscramble any eggs, whatever that meant. I like to eat eggs, but never mind. Didn't have one this morning. But I can't comment on what happened in the past. What I do know is that a third of the stormwater runoff is big commercial parking, big commercial owners. A third is multi-res, but their footprint is very small for obvious reasons because they're tall. And then the other third is homeowners, right? So what we need to do is provide incentive for homeowners to do the right thing, which I just described, right? All the green front, back, and downspout, and rain barrel and all of those things. We know what needs to be done. It's just providing incentives for homeowners to do that. And so how do we divide up? How do we do the charge? How do we provide incentives? All of that is under discussion.
So that's how you're gonna get the money, but the spending of the money, like how,
Sorry?
what are you going to spend? Are you going to spend more money on?
No, we need, yes, we are spending a lot of money on infrastructure that we will be spending more money because now that we've done the downloading, uploading. But the stormwater charge, right now, there's the water rate, right? And the question is whether we charge on the stormwater side. So that's being examined right now, and there had been, 2018, there was a debate, there was another debate in 2021, motion was passed, it's complicated, so people have been actively working on it. Even as of 10 days ago, I had a meeting with the water service people precisely on what kind of policy do we put in place and what kind of consultation would take place.
Paul, can I just ask you about the work that was done at the mouth of the Don River into, just with the whole Villiers Island project there? A lot of money going into that was, I guess, sold as a way to help mitigate some of the flooding. But, we saw it yesterday. So is that just not the catch-all? Like, what do you say to people who look at the investment and say, like, this didn't pay off yesterday?
So we have to be careful because, that investment was not about a low-lying area of the Don Valley Parkway. And in fact, it's much more about unlocking the waterfront for future development. There is no purpose in talking about building residential down at the waterfront the same way at East Harbor if we're not protected. So we need to be careful that no one project was about how to mitigate everything yesterday. They're all part of it. The investment that's been made by 3 levels of government in the Portlands, the investment that will be made by 3 levels of government at East Harbor is critical to ensuring that where we develop and where we increase housing opportunities for Toronto are protected from flooding in the future. So those are good investments. Alongside, and you want to talk about investment, our capital program for the next 10 years is the largest in Toronto's history at $50 billion. And within that are the very things that I talked about, search for them. All of these projects that are about basement flooding, like those are the pieces that will address some of what happened yesterday. So I can't, and each of those individually can't be tied to how we would have solved all the problems yesterday. These are all part of a package of capital investment that we're going to make over the number of years. And they are all worthy and will be paying off in the future. So.
Sewage was bypassed yesterday. Is water safe for Torontonians today? What's the quality today?
So let's just be clear, water safety in terms of the drinking water that we enjoy was never in question. So by bypass, we are talking about the treatment of sewage through the sewage treatment plants. And in all communities, of this size, when you hit an event like yesterday, there is a bypass and partially treated water is discharged in this case. So after an event like this, we always say, swimming in the lake for the next 48 hours, not the best idea for a whole bunch of reasons, and part of that is a bit of what happened with our treatment plant. The alternative is your plants go down. So we need to manage that, but the drinking water in Toronto was never at risk in any way. It is not at risk today. Our drinking water is safe and wonderful in this community. We are talking about the way we treat the wastewater. And at times yesterday, because of the volume of water that was running through the system, for some of the reasons the mayor talks about and just the runoff that's there, we were discharging partially treated water. Toronto Water would be able to follow up with you in terms of volumes with that.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thanks.